start anyway. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn my video off so it doesn't distract myself and anybody else that's on here. So we are also recording the webinar. So if anybody wants a recording at the end, then by all means, we will be sending that out to everybody. And also there is Q&A. There is a section for Q&A later on, but if you have any questions as we go throughout the presentation, please put them into the Q&A and we can address them later on or then if it's highlighted to me. So I will turn my video off. Right, so welcome to today's webinar. It's really to address what's going on in the education industry and the fact that we've sort of designed a security operations center specifically for education. I am Rick Gray, and I've been in cybersecurity for 26 years now. I've founded a couple of cybersecurity managed service providers in my time in cybersecurity, delivering all different types of advisory types of services into many different industries and providing cyber solutions, whether that's technology or services into those specific industries. I'm now head of cybersecurity for Meridian IT, and here's today's agenda. I'm going to cover Meridian IT. Some people may not have heard of Meridian. The current security landscape as I see it in general and in education. We're going to focus a little bit on Microsoft and their position in the industry and how credible they've now become, and also understanding the licensing model as Microsoft changes this frequently, and it's quite difficult to utilize their security features within the products. And then we'll go and talk about Meridian's EDU-SOC and what that is and how we deliver that. And then we'll show you a real live illustration of a ransomware attack and how our SOC analysts, our expertise in the SOC, coupled with the Microsoft tools, respond to a ransomware attack. And then we'll hear from Tony Welton from Wellington College, who has been pivotal in this creation of EDU-SOC. Tony has helped us huge amounts, and it's been quite a success. So we're going to hear from Tony Welton around some of his challenges in cyber and how he's addressed those. And then we have a Q&A, and then anybody that attends the webinar will get an exclusive offer at the end, and I will tell you more about that as we go through the presentation. So Meridian. Meridian have been in business for 42 years, profitable every year, which I think is quite amazing. We had 26 years in cybersecurity experience. They have 600 managed service customers globally. They are a global organization. You can see in the countries that they play in. We provide quite a bit of compute workspaces which are available in the cloud. I think there's 1 million at the moment. And we are certified ISO 27001, 9001, and Cyber Essentials Plus to really sort of help endorse what we're doing here. And we have about 500 technical consultants globally that are readily available. I have to produce this slide because I know my team are very proud of the fact that we became carbon neutral, and they'll kill me if I don't present this. Let's look at what we do and who we do it to, or our pedigree of what we've done in the past. So we have the advisory services that we offer here out to any organization, and this is really to do gap analysis, pen tests and security assessments, cloud security reviews, incident response, help people through different types of frameworks, whether that's NIST, MITRE, Cyber Essentials, ISO, etc. We have all the expertise required in that space to provide security architecture reviews and advisory. Then we look at the prevention. So we're going to help organizations maximize their current investment and reconfigure some of their tools to make them more effective, or offer different types of sort of next generation tools to help protect from these cyber attacks in those particular areas. And then we have the detection, which for me, I think is probably the most important element of cybersecurity today, which is really about, we can't just prevent people from coming in. We're never going to stop them, unfortunately. But if we can identify when they do come in and detect, then we can reduce the amount of damage caused and isolate it and create some sort of automation there to ensure that this doesn't happen again. And then we have the managed services side of the business, because there's such a lack of resource and skills in this whole cyber industry. And then we're supporting a lot of our customers around what we do there, whether it's web, whether it's managed Steam, Sentinel, or endpoint, or XDR type of services. And we also have SOCs that we deliver out to many of our customers. Some of the customers we have, I think some of them we'd like to talk about. XPS pension groups. We offer an awful lot of cyber security managed services, including a full 365 24/7 SOC. And these guys provide a lot of pension services into blue light, so police, fire services, ambulance services, etc. We have PaySafe. They're a massive financial online payment gateway organization, and we do a lot of network detection response and help in services around XDR, etc. And we have some really important companies in the UK, and you probably heard of National Grid. Without them, we wouldn't be talking today. So we do a lot of security architecture review for them, and implementation of next generation tools. And NemoLink, you probably never heard of, but they provide the Atlantic connection of electricity between the UK and the US. National Grid are huge in the United States, and NemoLink are a venture or partner of National Grid. So we help monitor and protect that link that goes across under the sea, which is critical. And you can see that these are all sort of power ventures down here, utility companies that are really important to the UK. And we have Wellington College, which I've worked with Wellington College for a number of years, and Tony has been pivotal in this element of helping us create an EDU-SOC specifically designed for education. Let's look at what's going on in education. Microsoft released some reports recently, and there's a link down here that you can either copy or we can send out afterwards. And in the last 30 days, education has seen well over 6 million, nearly 7 million types of malware encounters on their endpoints. And you can see where that is against some of the other industries out there. I would have thought healthcare would have been a little bit higher, but I'm quite shocked to see the stats in education. So what is going on? If we look across education, we look across primary, secondary, further education, etc., we can see that 85% of identified breaches in the last 12 months have been in higher education institutes. And we've seen a reduction in business and a huge increase in education, and that's what's going on in the market at the moment. We've seen that in the last 12 months, there's a huge amount of people impersonating and delivering phishing attacks into different types of industries here. And again, we can start to see that education is pretty high. These stats here are from the National Cybersecurity Centre, and they did a review of so many thousands of businesses and schools, etc. 50% of education have reported experiencing some type of breach or attacks, at least weekly, and 61% of those have had a negative outcome, which is a loss of money or loss of data from any of those breaches, which is significant. And 75% of those institutes have also highlighted that they may not have had a material outcome, but it has impacted them significantly due to additional staff that they've had to throw into this to deal with the breach. And some of those people don't have the staff available. We have the security landscape at the moment. If we look at the top 5, phishing is up there in the top 5 type of crime losses. And it represents a 2.4 billion loss, 59% which is high. Phishing is a major issue at the moment. And we see that 80% of these attacks are via 0365 or email. We know that it takes on average about an hour and 12 minutes for an attacker to access the private data via a phishing attack. We know that it's about 1 hour, 42 minutes for the attacker to move laterally throughout the network looking for sysadmin username and password so that they can then really start to create some damage and get to places you don't really want them to get to, the crown jewels. We've seen a massive increase in ransomware as a service, and I'll go into more detail about that on the next slide. And not only are we seeing attackers saying, if you don't pay the ransom, you're not going to get your data back, but they're now actually saying, you know, even if you don't pay it, we're going to publish your data to the world, which then puts you into a GDPR breach. So these are the two ransomware groups in education that are causing havoc at the moment. We have ransomware as a service, which is being delivered by Vice Society, you may have heard of, and I can provide lots of information on all the different types of tactics that these threat groups are using. But they do deliver ransomware as a service, and it's very simple for anybody to use. You set up a Bitcoin account, and the ransomware as a service, Vice Society will retain 30% of the ransom and you will get 70% of the ransom back. It's easy, it's already there. You put the email addresses in you want to attack, you press click, and then you watch people open those emails. It's shocking. They are responsible for 47% of all ransomware attacks into education. And they do threaten to release the sensitive data unless you do pay that ransom. So it's not just about getting your data back. Resida, they have been recently known to join with Vice Society, and they have some very unique, sophisticated processes that will terminate some antivirus services and processes in doing so, and delete their traces, etc. So they are quite sophisticated, and we are seeing more of a Resida in the industry. This link down here shows you all of the MITRE tactics, attack tactics that they're using, and if we know and identify what those tactics are and how they're attacking, then we can look for those and automatically stop those from actioning. Let's look at Microsoft. If you took me back 5-6 years, I probably would have said Microsoft are not in the right space. They don't have a credible solution or offering. But in recent years, they've been investing 11 billion a year into their R&D, into just security, and that's billion, not million. And they're on a 5-year program. They're 3 years into that program, and there's been significant changes when it comes to their capabilities. And they do offer quite a lot of cybersecurity features and tools, which are top right-hand corner in the Gartner Magic Quadrant. So they're there. We don't just believe, as an organization, we don't just believe in what the press are saying or Gartner are saying. We actually do test these tools, and we send hundreds of different types of attacks, including ransomware, into these tools, and we see how they perform in blocking, detecting, preventing, from a investigation point of view, a remediation point of view, etc. And we're quite happily put our stamp of approval across Microsoft. It is a very credible endpoint security tool. They have 60% savings, and in some cases, because of licensing and being able to understand the licensing, we've done some deals with people recently where it's become cost neutral, collapsing your existing tools and utilizing what you've already paid for and what you've already got and just turning it on. So a lot of people don't realize that they've got Defender as part of their license. It does all the good things around discovering vulnerabilities and misconfigurations, which is what the attackers are exploiting. It blocks sophisticated threats. So as we were talking about Resida, For instance, they use sophisticated attacks, but with Microsoft, with the ML, the AI, and the user behavior-based techniques that the tool has, they can identify recidivist in an attack, which is critical. They eliminate risk by helping you understand your attack surface and minimizing risk. So if we see an application that might be susceptible to an attack, it can identify that and we can remediate that, make configuration changes and lower your risk. It's very good from an automation perspective, which is imperative today because there's a hell of a lot that goes on in the world of cyber. And we can quickly go from alert to remediation, and you'll see that in a demonstration of a real live ransomware attack later on. And I think one of the most important areas here is the integration. Now, from being in the industry for 26 years, it is a nightmare dealing with multiple different platforms and logging in when you do have an attack or you suspect you have an attack. Microsoft had absolutely nailed this with the integration of their security tools, and being able to go into one screen and identify what's going on is like a breath of fresh air. So they have this integration between the SIEM tool and XDR. SIEM, many people may have heard of SIEM, some people may not have heard of SIEM, but it's the security, I can't even remember what it's Security Information Event Management, had a mental blank there. And really what we're doing here is Microsoft have what's called Sentinel, and they compete against some of the players out there like Logarithm, Splunk, Alien Vault, QRadars, etc. And what we're doing here is we're taking all the data and information, event logs, logins, etc., from devices, from infrastructure, from users, from applications, and we correlate that information so that we can detect any abnormalities, anything that looks suspicious, anything that's known to type of tactics that we were talking about earlier that certain attack groups will use. And then what we'll do is we create automation around that to automate a response that says, we've seen something that's known to an attacker or ransomware, and we've automatically isolated it and kicked off an investigation, which enables our security experts or analysts within the SOC to then go in and further investigate it and find out exactly what it is. So why Microsoft Sentinel SIEM? SIEM normally, inherently, have been delivering SIEM solutions for about 16 years now. And normally there's a huge amount of infrastructure costs and setup costs known to this, and it takes an awful lot of time to deliver these and get value from them. And when you want to scale, if there is an attack, you may automatically need some more storage to scale. Sentinel helps there. It's very dynamic and flexible, and it automatically scales because it uses Microsoft Azure. It helps you collect, correlate, and analyze the data across all of those areas which I just showed you. Doesn't matter whether it's cloud or on-premise. So it gives you that visibility, which is absolutely critical. We have a built-in SOAR, and this is Security Operations Automation and Response. And the key element there is the automation and response. This is built in, and most other vendors would charge you a separate fee for this, and it can be very expensive. Microsoft have this AI and behavior analytics built in, so we can start to work out what users do normally. An example of that is Rick comes in every morning, he opens up his Outlook and his calendar and his Salesforce, and why is he suddenly trying to connect to the finance tools? It's abnormal. That would maybe flag as an indicator of compromise. And it reduces false positives by sort of 90% with certainly with some expertise and analysts in the background watering and feeding these tools. And it really does help to identify any compromises, and it just simplifies integration with playbooks. So if we've seen a ransomware attack come in and it's done X, Y, and Z, then we can set a rule in there to say, if we see X, Y, and Z ever again, just automatically isolate it and remove it. And Big element here is if you're bringing in all of your Microsoft logs, so Office 365, Microsoft Defender for endpoint, AD, domain information into this tool, it's free, completely free for 90 days, believe it or not. So that's where they have a massive advantage on competitors. And as you can see, they're in the top right-hand corner here for Gartner. So let's look at Microsoft licensing. And it can be a bit overwhelming. We don't know what we've got as part of the security features. So what I've done here is just try to simplify this. So really what we're doing is we're going out there and helping many people maximize what they've currently got. Microsoft will try and upsell you to the A5 license for selfish reasons. It's more money for them. But there are some, should I say, dare I say it, some Microsoft licensing hats, which are all legal and all compliant, but it's understanding that you can buy things modular here. You can add on stuff. So as you can see, if we take A3 as an example, you can see there isn't many Microsoft security elements of part of A3 apart from Defender for endpoint plan 1, which is good. So it gives you that next generation type of antivirus or endpoint detection tools. But what you can do is you can do an add-on, an A5 security. So rather than moving all the way to A5, you can just put this add-on and then you get utilization of all of these different plans. And really what's important to be SOC ready is to have the plan 2. So plan 2 for Office 365. So that's all of your Office environment there. So we can do anti-phishing, real-time reports, and also automated investigation and response. And then also the plan 2 here, which is really important to have this endpoint detection and response side of it. This really starts to give the analyst the information to dig deeper and forensically look at exactly what's going on. So let's look at what this actually means. So the add-ons here, you've probably seen some of these licensing. If you went for A5, we know that it's going to be roughly, these are list prices, £9.90 a month per staff, and for students, £7.40. However, you can add these modularly, and if you wanted to, Defender for Office 365, so that's all of your online Exchange Online environment, OneDrive, SharePoint, protect all of that, and OneNote. We got these types of pricing here. And then you've got the Defender for plan 2 for Edu. If you wanted to buy it separately, it's £2.10 for Edu there. Now, what I'd like to bring into play here, this is the security bundle that I was talking about. You can add for A5 security at not a lot of cost, so it wouldn't make sense putting these separately. You would just go for something like this. And if you're part of the Microsoft Customer Agreement Program, which we've helped many people get onto, then you would only pay for the faculty license. And then every faculty license that you buy, you get 40 free licenses per student. So in actual fact, this does not cost you hardly anything at all to move into these, to utilize the security features within Microsoft. What is EDU-SOC? So EDU-SOC is it's a security operations center as a service, and it's designed for, specifically designed for education. So it's a lighter touch service with a lighter cost associated to it. And really what that does is it enables us to offer these short commitment terms. We're not trying to pull you or hook you into long-term contracts like many other organizations would do when it comes to a SOC service. So we're starting at 3 to 6 months, and we begin small scale, we prove value and then expand. And hopefully you'll hear more about this from Tony, because we've done exactly the same with Tony. And we start with O365 and Endpoint Defender. We've seen that that is the area of most risk at the moment when it comes to phishing attacks and into education specifically. So we'll monitor those areas, and it's very little cost for you to do so. Meridian experts become an extension of your existing team. So we understand your environment, your users, what you're connecting with, where they're connecting from. The more we know, the more valuable we become delivering this service. And then we are an extension of your team. Anything that you want, you can pick the phone up. We're there to help. We provide this proactive threat detection and response, which is what we're trying to do. We want to protect against these attacks. And so we alert you on any attacks and we help remediate against any of those. We also provide weekly reports, and this is where we become quite valuable, is we send you these reports on things that we've identified with recommendations on how to reconfigure or change things or turn things on within your existing tools or the Microsoft tools. And then we can help you through that process. We're not just going to tell you this is what you've got to do, off you go and do it. We make sure that those are followed through and we provide support. And then we have a monthly service review, which I think is really important, because what we're doing here is we're covering what we've seen weekly. We're providing you a security score as part of this. And then what we're doing is we're saying we're going to review what we're delivering in terms of analyst time. That's how we charge. And normally we start with 2 days analyst time a month, which we found to be plenty enough. And we split that throughout the day, each day of the month. And if all of a sudden we find that your security is maturing and there isn't much to do there, we're just going to do some monitoring, then that cost reduces over the month. And we have this security score so that we can identify where you are and benchmark against the industry, so the education industry, and we can show you your score increasing or decreasing. Now, just a very simple example is if you didn't have multi-factor authentication turned on, your score would reduce, and we would say to you, you need to then go and deliver or implement MFA across the board, and your score will increase back up. So this helps to identify those gaps and weak areas. We provide incident response to help in the aid of an unfortunate event. Unfortunately, sometimes they do happen. We hear more and more about this every day, unfortunately. But we're here as the incident responders to help in an event where you do get attacked. We set up Microsoft security features, including Defender for Endpoint, Defender for Office, and Microsoft Sentinel. And what's critical here is they are yours. That is your own tenant. It's not ours. We have access to them to help manage them and water and feed them, but they are yours. So if you wanted to cease the service with us at any given point, we walk away and you are left with everything configured, and they are yours and we don't have access to them. Everything is tailored to your specific requirements. There isn't a one size fits all. And unfortunately, in the cyber world, people that are delivering SOCs always believe that there's one size fits all, but there is never a case. And we provide predictable billing via our analyst effort and service reviews. And believe me, a lot of people think that the Azure costs are going to be quite expensive, but they are pretty much next to nothing. We haven't seen anyone paying hardly anything, and Tony will probably vouch for that later on. And as part of what we're delivering here to people that have joined the webinar is a 1 month free service. And in that 1 month, we can pretty much guarantee that you'll get the value that you need to see. So some of the benefits: improved threat detection and response, which is what we need today to defend against these sophisticated attacks and those ransomware groups. You get comprehensive security with the Microsoft SIEM and XDR tools, and it really is comprehensive and credible. You get dedicated time from a qualified security expert a month. That really helps to ease the pressure on your in-house teams when it comes to security. We get that detection of advanced threats, sophisticated attacks. We get the investigation of prioritized incidents. We will be investigating anything that we see, and there's no long-term commitments, or it's all based on a subscription model. And it really does enable efficient and effective response to any types of indicators of compromise. And we offer this risk-free trial, and it really is risk-free. There's no cost to you. There's very limited time because we can set up the SOC within minutes, literally within minutes. I just want to show you a real live ransomware attack and how Microsoft Defender and Sentinel, coupled with our security analysts who are managing the portals, respond to a real live ransomware attack. Now, I have sped this up and tried to keep it as short as possible and put a voiceover because Joseph, our senior analyst, will probably kill me for saying this. He would have probably bored you, bless him. But so we put a voiceover, but I will press play.
Firstly, we will demonstrate when the alert is raised. To prevent further infection, we will isolate the device. As you can see here in the Defender Security Center, we have a button to isolate the device, and when we click it, our connection to the device is removed. During device isolation, connection to the Defender Security Center will be maintained. Let us navigate to the Security Center. To do this, click on the alert. The first thing to note is that Defender detected the ransomware, and an automated investigation was started. We will come back to this when it is completed. In the incident screen, you can see a summary of the incident, all the alerts associated with the incident, and the devices, users, mailboxes, and apps that were used in the incident. The automated investigation can also be found here. The evidence response section contains indicators of compromise which can be used to further threat hunt. We will demonstrate this ability later. Let us dive into the alert associated with the incident. This visualization shows the processes associated with the final event that was deemed malicious. As you can see, the user spawned an Explorer window in which they started 7-zip to extract an executable that was deemed malicious. From the alert screen, we can click the See in Timeline button. The timeline is a summarized event log of what is happening on the device. If we click the button, we can see the events that also happened around the time of the malware detection. If you scroll further down, we can see the events in which the macros attempted to run, but were blocked by Defender. If we go to the Action Center and go to the history, we can see that an analyst has logged on using a remote session. During this remote session, they located the zip file from which the malware was unzipped from and removed it. This means the malware is no longer a threat, as it is no longer present on the device due to the analyst actions. The remote session is essentially a full Unix shell, in which the analysts can action files, processes, and other IOCs that may be found during the investigation. Let us navigate back to Sentinel to show how automation can stop the spread of malware preemptively. We have created a rule in Sentinel to match if the ransomware is seen again, and it will automatically raise as a higher priority alert. Due to our newly created rule in Sentinel, we have an automation rule to automatically isolate any device in which a high priority incident is raised on. When the incident is closed in Sentinel, the device will be released from isolation. This ends our demonstration of an end-to-end ransomware attack.
Thank you for listening to that. So there you get to see how Microsoft security tools, coupled with our EDU-SOC and our security analyst experts, deal with a real live ransomware attack, and how they then create some sort of automation to identify those tactics that the piece of malware takes on the network to help identify those in future. And if it does if it does see those types of tactics again, then there's that automation that automatically responds to those attacks. So over to I'd like to introduce Tony Welton from Wellington College. Tony is the Director of IT Services at Wellington College. And Tony I think has had probably about 10 or 11 months of EDU-SOC from us. And I wanted to introduce Tony to really sort of ask Tony some questions around his experience around cybersecurity and talk to everyone. And if anyone has got any questions, please ask questions as we go through this. So hi, Tony, welcome.
Hi, thanks for inviting me along, Rick.
No problem whatsoever. Tony, Now, I've known you for some time, and I've known that you take cybersecurity extremely seriously to help safeguard not only the staff and the school, but certainly the pupils, which is really important. And I know that, working with you over time, you have implemented quite a few security tools. But firstly, I'd like to ask you what challenges you've found over the years when it comes to cybersecurity, really.
Sure. So you highlighted the key thing there, really, already. But one of the key priorities that we will always have as a school or a college is to keep our students, staff, and all our systems safe, right, from all cyber attacks. But also, while we're doing that, we've got to keep in line safeguarding, because we have quite stringent guidelines that we have to adhere to as a college. So that's always the number one for us. But when you look at all the wealth of technologies out there, and often we have limited funds being education, our task as heads of IT is always a really tough one. As we need to ensure that the products that we choose work obviously very effectively, but B, the cost is always going to be got to be cost effective, and it also needs to be very sustainable and work with all the other products that we have within education. We have deployed across our whole organization. But then once you've found these great products, and there are, I mean, there's many great products out there in cyber, as you mentioned, and there's been many that I've tried over the years as well. You're always faced with a great challenge, and that challenge being gaining the expertise to how to use those products effectively and to make the most out of those products. But you also need to make sure that, normally it's quite a large investment that you have to make with those products, that you actually get a good return on that. And then the key challenge, which is the one that I'm going to probably go on about quite a lot, is keeping up to date. And these products require a lot of manpower, and that manpower requires time, where you have to continually manage and monitor these products to ensure that the data that you're getting out of them is being used. Because the worst thing is that you have a product, it alerts you to something, and then that data is ignored because you just haven't had the time and effort to do anything about it. So lots of challenges, really. I mean, yes, funds being one, finding the right product and solution, but the key one there is time. That's the key thing. We are so limited with resources we have, unlike with most organizations. When you look at corporate, with Edu, we have what is a large user base, being loads of students, and as we know, students are our biggest challenge because they're the ones who are inquisitive, and we encourage that as well. Be inquisitive, learn new skills, but those new skills come with greater challenge, and that is that they are looking at things on the internet, they are looking at how to challenge your cybersecurity. But then looking back at us as an IT team, we are very small, generally just a handful of guys, where we're managing what is in essence, say, 1,500 users, where in a corporate environment, you'd have a large scale team. So a long answer to your question there, Rick, but it kind of highlights the challenge that we have.
It's great. And I did have another question to ask you, which you've really sort of covered, which was the fact that how you deal with multiple different cybersecurity products. And you just mentioned that skills become a bit of a time thief, really, because you have to learn those different types of skills, those different technologies, and then go into each and every one. I mean, I know from the cyber world, it's very painful. But I do have some other questions I'd like to ask, and in particularly around Microsoft, because in the corporate world, I was talking earlier about 5 years ago, we heavily got involved, roughly about 5 years ago, with Microsoft. And what we've seen in the corporate world is probably sort of 8 out of 10 companies now are either using Microsoft or looking at moving to Microsoft and understanding that they can now start to utilize their Microsoft licensing, and the security tools are credible enough for them to use. What are you seeing in education around Microsoft being used and endorsed?
So Microsoft in Edu is there's basically, especially here in the UK, we've seen that there is a huge majority of schools are making full use of what is Office 365, and they basically use it to great benefit for things like using the Teams, OneNote, and the whole Office suite. Making the use, moving the data to the cloud with Exchange and so forth with SharePoint. So with the great licensing on offer, it does make perfect sense to standardize using the whole Microsoft security stack, which you alluded to earlier in the presentation, being able to deploy Defender to all of our endpoints. And those endpoints were the ones I was referring to with regards to staff and students. So the number of devices that we have with our sort of BYOD environments is huge. But having said that, I do know a lot of schools make full use of the whole Microsoft solution. But then there are those that I also talk to that still do have alternative antivirus products, meaning that they are basically double paying. They're paying unnecessarily for those antivirus products. And going back to what I was saying about that data, are they making full use of those products? The answer is always no, because it's one of those sorts of solutions where you implement and kind of hope that the solution's working as best as it can. But is it really, without having that human element and those sort of eyes looking at that data to see that those ransomware attacks are being blocked and mitigated against? You just never know. So the other thing there about using the whole Microsoft security solution, I mean, Defender is only the first part for me. When you look at the whole bigger picture, when you're protecting your data within your environment and protecting your user identities, using the tools like the Compliance Center and Cloud App Security, or it's called Entra and Purview, I think as it's now known, the whole solution just becomes a much more integrated, all-encompassing solution, where you have just that single dashboard really to look and maintain it.
That's great. No, thank you for answering that. It is, I think it's quite challenging to get customers and prospects and people to move from what they know existingly, and we definitely are seeing people moving across and actually saving money by collapsing some of their endpoint security tools. Yeah, we've seen that regularly in the market. Let's talk about, so we sort of mentioned some of the costs there. A lot of tools, we see these sophisticated attacks coming in. So how, without spending huge amounts of money like six-figure sums, because I know that some of these, certainly theme tools like the Logarithms of the world, Splunks, QRadars, etc., are very expensive to purchase up front. How have you found the costs with Microsoft Sentinel versus traditional type of SIEM tools?
Well, as you say, that's one of the greatest challenges, and that's one of the reasons why I'm selling this call, because say over the years, and I've been here at the college now for 14 years, I've seen many solutions come and go, but that's say one of the reasons why I'm here is the fact that being able to utilize the costs of basically the Meridian IT solution has been great, because not only do we make full use of the whole Microsoft stack, but it's all set up for us as well. But also having those guys on the Meridian team look and maintain our environment has been second to none, really. And this comes as that whole low monthly cost that you mentioned on one of your slides. But the cost compared to, I mean, I've had traditional SIEMs in the past as well, and what I found there is that the whole log management sort of thing. I mean, to be honest, I'm a big fan of log management, and I have been over the years as well. But as we know, as you mentioned, these products are not cheap, and they come at huge corporate costs. But on top of that cost, I mentioned, I'll keep on about this, it's the daily running of it. You get so much data out of these products that it becomes very expensive. So, I mean, I use the word expensive because that time that you have to have your network manager or your engineers looking at that data gets very expensive because you're having to pay for that manpower. But however, the cost of Sentinel, I would like to say, is absolutely ridiculous. When I say ridiculous, I say that in a great way, because since we've had that implemented, which, if memory serves me correctly, it was last October that we started along this venture, we've actually spent absolutely nothing on Sentinel, which is beyond crazy when you think of what it does and what solution that it gives us when we look at the whole solution as a whole, with Defender and how it mitigates alerts and just gives us that security wrapper. When you compare that to other products on the market, in essence, for me, it's a complete and utter no-brainer. So
yeah, it is. It's we're seeing it in the corporate world as well, and hence why Microsoft are bringing on 10,000 new clients every quarter into Sentinel, right? Because the cost just you can't compete. You've got the capability, the credibility, you've got the features and the tools that you need that you'd be spending huge amounts of money for elsewhere. It's a no-brainer, really, and I think in years to come, from my experience in cyber, I think within 2 to 3 years' time, I don't know what the other vendors are gonna do and how they're going to compete against Microsoft. I really don't. So that makes me move nicely on to our EDU-SOC service. You mentioned some things there and about how little cost it was for you to move over. How have you found this lighter touch and starting small and expanding? Have you found this compared to other sort of SOC services that people might have been offering you or you've seen or used? Yeah, how have you found it?
So
how quick was it to set up? I think that's an important one as well, really.
So I mentioned I've been here a long time, and again, I'm using many other products, and basically, SOC service is one that I've always really wanted, alluded to, and I've been offered SOC services from other vendors many times, I would say. But the reason why they were no interest is because these were always fully integrated solutions and targeted to basically large-scale corporations. And those large-scale corporations are great, but those services then come with large-scale costs, which, as an education, there's no way Edu can ever afford to have a 24/7 SOC when you're competing, you're doing a like for like against, shall we say, an investment bank. It's never going to work. So the EDU-SOC here is being very light touch, designed for education, designed for what our requirements are, basically with this sector in mind. It's aimed to complement what we have with our in-house teams. And our in-house teams within schools, we know exactly what's required, right? So the issue with those other sort of large SOCs don't understand this sector and will always try to look and manage and maintain your environment. Whereas what we're looking for is that complementary service to just build in what we already have in-house, but to give us that reassurance that not only are we getting the full utilization of the products that we have, being in this case, that whole Microsoft security stack, but also we've got that great bunch of guys within the Meridian team that we can call upon as and when we need them, and give us that peace of mind knowing that we get that report, to go through where we are with Secure Score, which is great because of what we've seen with Secure Score, which is, for those that aren't familiar with that, is that Microsoft analysis of where you are within the whole security stack to see what improvements you can make. So within that year, where we've since October, we've seen it increase dramatically. Which is, from my point of view, being an IT director, is that peace of mind knowing that you're doing things correctly, that you are seeing an improvement, and then you can then look at that report, talk with the security analysts to look at the recommendations, what those recommendations actually mean. You know, are they meaningful? What impacts will they have with our users? Is it something that's right for this environment? It's just that having that sort of knowledge on hand, knowing that you've then got this extended team. So rather than just having that in-house where you're having to always learn, you're getting that knowledge from that corporate sector, from all of the Microsoft Knowledge House being brought into your basically your school environment without the cost of having all of that knowledge, which is, in my view, fantastic.
And I remember we put you on a 1 month free trial, and yeah, I like to say that it's risk free, because my view is we set you up, you use this service for 1 month, and in doing so, we're setting up your Microsoft Defender, configuring it, making recommendations on your settings in your Office 365 environment, setting up Sentinel. How did you find that 1 month trial?
So before that trial, I mean, I was sat there thinking that I was nice and secure, because again, I was quite an avid user of Defender, and I'd heard of Sentinel. I've been on a few sort of webinars from Microsoft about Sentinel, but then when I tried to configure it, you're like with a lot of these sort of products, you're faced with a blank canvas. I didn't really know how to set it up correctly. So the whole setting up process, from my point of view, and it being Wellington, was completely hands off. As in, the guys at the SOC were basically brilliant. They had it all set up within a very short period of time. We sat on a very quick Teams call, and it was completely pain-free. And I think it was pretty soon after when we started seeing the data going through and pumping into Sentinel, we started to get that immediate analytical data that we could then start to get a good picture of where we were within the basically the security stack and what improvements we could start to enhance. And that was me thinking that I had more or less turned on quite a lot of the products already. But it just goes to show you can never sit on your laurels in this case and just sit thinking, yes, I've done everything possible. It's a learning journey. This is, using the Microsoft term here, it's evergreen. The cyber landscape is always changing. Those threats are ever increasing. And that kind of then goes back to how do we keep on top of it? And it's, again, having the SOC service for me is a complete no-brainer, because it's not just a product. Yes, we're using the Microsoft products, but the whole product as a solution is having that team basically helping us to maintain that. So yeah, another long-winded answer there again, Rick. Sorry.
Yeah, that's all right, no problem. Thank you very much, Tony. I'm going to move on now, but thanks for your answers there. I really appreciate it, and I'm really pleased that you're seeing value in the service. So that's what we set out to do. Cool. I'm going to move on. Thank you very much, Tony.
Thank you.
We have a Q&A, and I don't think we've got any questions. Has anybody got any questions at all at the moment? None come in so far. I will move on. People can still ask questions. I just wanted to cover our EDU-SOC Ready exclusive offer for everybody. And what we'll do here is, this is completely free of charge, and as part of this exclusive offer, you will get your 1 month free trial as well. And in doing so, if you accept to take this, there's no commitment to this at all. But what we're going to do is we will review all of your, so there'll be a review of your Microsoft licensing, so that we can understand what licensing you've got, what security features you may be able to utilize under that. We'll review your existing security tools and the features that you have with those versus Microsoft, and give you our lowdown on that. We'll also do a cost exercise with you of your existing tools versus Microsoft licensing if you need to add any licensing to it. And as you can see in the presentation, there are quite a few areas that you can, there's some sort of, not loopholes, but Microsoft really don't make it easy for you to understand that you can just put these add-ons on and they're not really going to cost you anything. We then deliver this 1 month free EDU-SOC service for you, and in doing so, you will get in that first 1 month a load of recommendations on how to reconfigure things, set up stuff in Microsoft Defender and Sentinel, or O365, and you get asked full support in doing so. And you get the setup and configuration of MS Defender and Sentinel as part of that. Should you not want to take the service with us afterwards, then you walk away with all of that setup and it's all configured correctly for you. So it really is a risk-free trial. And if anybody who's attending this would like to take me up on that offer, they can either put something in the chat quickly now saying yes, or I will send out an email to everybody anyway with this PDF around it, and just contact me and we can get this set up, no problem for you. So I have a question. Are you able to share any ballpark cost for the monthly SOC costs? So James, I absolutely am able to share that. And normally what we do is we charge a day rate, and we would normally start at 2 days a month, which is ample, and has been ample for Wellington College, which is 2 days of analyst time a month spread across each day. And we charge £950 a day, so that's 2 of those days a month. And over time, we see that that could reduce, because the more mature, the more setup that we've done, the more automation that we've done in the SOC. So as part of that, you get the Sentinel setup, Microsoft setup, and the watering and feeding of that on a monthly basis. You get the investigation part of that. So we're investigating any indicators of compromise or potential threats that are in there. And you also then get us as an extension of your IT team. So if you have any questions around cyber or security, then we're there to help. So not only do we have SOC analysts there, but we also have operational side, so the technical side of our business. So we have some very good experts in there. I mean, they are some of the best, and maybe sounding a little bit biased there, but I think from some of the customers that you see, certainly in utilities and power, you know, if we're helping design some of the most critical national infrastructure security, then hopefully endorses our capabilities. But James, I will probably follow up with you afterwards anyway for a call. And but yeah, thank you very much. Any other questions? Fantastic. I will leave you there. Thanks everybody for joining, and I will speak to you soon. Take care. Thank you. Bye-bye.